All right, notice this one's got some drilling on it.
Well, what this is my reproduction of Eddy's hour bike. So you grab on here for leverage and you'll tweak that.
Hey guys, this is John. Welcome back to the channel. Hey, today we're going to do something really fun. We're going to see a guy named Rich Gangl. Now, if you don't know who he is, you're going to find out in this video, and you really should stick around because this guy is one interesting dude. You know, some of us observe people in cycling. We observe racers, we observe frame builders and people like that. And you know, that's me. I'm an observer. I mean, I raced a tiny bit when I was younger. I worked in bike shops and worked for a bike supplier, and I'm a collector of fine bicycles. But then there's the guys that live it. And Rich Gangl is one of them. Professional frame builder since 1979. Also, a bicycle racer, holds several records. And in this video, we're going to show the collection of bikes he built. He actually recreated every bicycle that Eddy Merckx ever raced in his professional career, right down to the spoke nipple. It's something to behold. He's someone to be reckoned with, and he's a mild-mannered gentleman, really good. And please bear with me. I am not an interview kind of person. I'm just learning how to do this, and it's hard for me. So please bear with me, but it's a lot of fun. See what this guy is all about, and watch to the end of the video. You'll see some interesting stuff.
Back to the channel. We are in beautiful Golden, Colorado at a wonderful, wonderful place. We're at Gangl Custom Cycles. He's going to show us around. He's got a beautiful collection of bikes that he built, a tribute to Eddy Merckx. Let's go in and check him out. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, pretty good.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Great to
see you, John.
Wow, look at all this.
Yeah, these are just pictures from throughout my racing career, various things.
And you raced from when to when?
I started in 1972,
Mm-hmm.
and I raced till today, through today still.
Still racing?
I don't win much anymore. But
Well, that's awesome. And how long have you been building bikes?
Since 1979.
79. Okay.
Yeah, first started out in my parents' double car garage, painting the bikes out on my mom's clothesline in the backyard. Then in 1983, I came to this building and been here ever since.
We got a lot of interesting pictures.
This was a circuit raced in Boulder, and probably in the late 70s.
Okay.
And that's Davis Finney.
No, you're kidding me.
My teammate Bill Lehman, that's Ron Kiefel, me, and Alexi Graywall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, these are my certificates when I set 2 national records in 1989.
Oh,
On
fantastic.
the velodrome in the kilo and the 3,000 meter pursuit. So I always had an affinity for these Mozzies. There I am in 1975 at the Red Zinger. And there I am holding my blue Mozzie right there. That's me right there. That was our sponsor. And that's Just Jeet. That's Alexi Graywall's dad. And then here's Alexi Graywall at Durango, where Paul's from. There's that Durango Iron Horse race.
Yeah.
And there's Rishi, his brother, that when he was 12. But when he's a 711 Pro, he wrote to Rich, he built the best bicycles I ever saw. And then Dave Moulton, did you ever hear of him?
Sure.
He visited me in 80s.
So when someone came to you to build a bike, what's the process?
I'd take the basic body measurements like all of us builders do.
Okay.
I used to, in the old days, hook them up on this modified Serrata cycle, and we'd fine tune the dimensions and everything, stem length and all that.
Sure.
Then the next step, I'm old school. I'd come here and I still do it. Classic, full size. I like to draw out all my plans.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And
This is neat.
Yep. This happens to be the Fiat Eddy Merckx tribute track bike.
Oh,
That was the plan for it.
I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little
the
later.
finished guy is right out there. So yeah, and then this is my shop. So what I'll do is, you know, after the drawing's all signed off, then I'll come out and start laying out the tubing and everything, lugs, whatever. And then I start prepping all that, like mitering and everything.
Oh, that reminds me. I got a gift from Jeffrey Bach. They're in my bag here. Here we go.
Yep.
Now, what are those?
The lugs for the Mozzie track bike that I'm going to make.
That's cool.
But that'll go with this bike right here.
Awesome. Well, that's neat.
Yep.
Glad I had a small, tiny miniature hand in that project.
So then after that, it's time to cut the tubes and miter them. And I do that on the lathes in the mill.
Gotcha.
much.
So you're well equipped. Oh my gosh. So you got everything in house.
Yeah.
Let's come around and take a look.
Yep. And then after all the tubing's mitered, I don't have my jig out right now because I needed more room for this display.
Sure.
But I have my jig. That's stored in the paint booth right now, and I'll set the frame geometry onto that jig and put all the tubing in. I go ahead and braze it all up. So after the frame's all brazed up and everything, then I go ahead and check alignment on my alignment table.
Okay.
And then after that, after everything's done, sometimes they go out for chroming. That's the only thing that's not done in-house here. I do
Gotcha.
everything else. So then the paint process starts. So I primer and paint. And then this cabinet right here, this is my drying oven. I designed that like 30 years ago. And it can hold 5 bikes at a time.
Oh, wow.
That's the paint booth back here. And so after that, and that's where I mix the paint right here. That's my mixing
What an
station.
amazing setup. I love how orderly it is, how clean it is.
Yeah.
You know, and everything is just set. And are you still building?
Yeah. I'm newly retired, about a year now. So I'm keeping my shop as long as I can. But, you know, I'm doing it for myself now.
Sure.
You know, I'm really enjoying it.
Well, that's awesome. Actually, you have a collection of bikes here.
Yeah.
That is amazing that you built. Tell me what inspired you to do this collection of Eddy Merckx bikes.
Well, of course, you know, I started racing, and all my Cat 1 racing was done during the 70s. You know, and that was the era of Merckx.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's who we all looked up to. So after all these years, I thought, well, I'm going to do a tribute collection to all the bikes that Eddy used during his professional career.
Well, you had those displayed at the Auburn show. Oh my gosh, people went bonkers over it.
Yeah.
And I think what I like to do, if you just give me a brief synopsis in each bike, and go from there. Okay, first of all, what is this thing? This is kind of fun.
Well, I went on eBay and I found these little bike racing figures, and happened to have all the jerseys or the teams that Eddy raced on during his professional career. So I went ahead and painted them up a little more detail and glued them on the piece of wood and labeled them with each team and what year he was on that team.
Cool. And I can see you got some awards here from the Auburn show and other shows.
Local
that's kind of
Eddy
fun.
Rando vintage shows
neat.
that we have here in Colorado.
Great. Well, here, show me the first bike. Let's see what we got here. Is this it right here? Yeah,
Yeah.
it must be. I can tell.
This is 1965. He was on the Solo Superior team. This is a Belgium-made frame by Remy Clays of Belgium. He's the one that built it. And this was Eddy's first professional team, and he won his first world title on this team, on this bike.
Now, excuse me for asking, how meticulous did you get? Are these the rims that he rode? Or these?
I researched for years on this. Like that rear derailleur is a new old stock from the mid-60s.
That's so cool.
Campy record.
Yeah.
150.
Oh my gosh, these are
151 millimeter bolt circle on the chain rings. And it had the Campy bar end shifters.
Oh, that is sharp.
It was Eddy's heaviest bike.
Okay, and this bike, he rode it from when to when?
1965, he was on that team for 1 year. And that was the team of Rick Van Looy, the Red Guard.
That is so cool. All right, for sake of time, we're going to move on a little bit here.
Yep.
It looks like we got a Peugeot.
And then after Solo Superior, he went to Peugeot, 66 to 67. And on stock, pretty much PX10.
So he rode it stock, not with Campy or anything.
No, they were very nationalistic. Everything on it's French.
Ah, makes sense.
And again, of course, I couldn't get the real thing. So both the Solo Superior bike and this Peugeot, those are builds from scratch.
Wow.
So I was able to procure all the original Nervex Pro lugs and all the parts.
This is just amazing. And you recreated this from scratch.
Yeah. And it's in my size because I like riding them.
Of course.
And then, these are pictures of him actually on there. That's Eddy Merckx and his friend that he raced with all through the years, Patrick Surcouf.
And
then after Peugeot, he went to Fema, it's an Italian coffee making machine company. And this one was made by Mozzie. It was a Mozzie special, 1968.
And so when you like the tubing and everything, that's
Yeah.
all the spec.
Yeah, I've have access. I use all the old Columbus tubing and vintage period correct.
Wow. All right.
And this is a neat one. I mean, there's Eddy with it when he showed his collection at a special show a number of years ago. What's unique about this bike is if you notice, there's no bolts, brake bolts, no nuts or washers on the bridges.
Oh yeah, that is.
So what it is that the actual center
on.
bolt is brazed on, and that's
Brazed.
very unique.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Other than on this. This is beautiful. And okay, you have to do me a favor. Pronounce that.
Uniconiter.
Uniconiter. Okay. Yeah. I always botch it and people make fun of me.
Okay.
They make fun of me anyways, Rich.
So after Fama, I mean, it's still the same team, but it was Famino.
Famino.
Yeah.
All right.
So 1970. The other thing about that, Eddy he won his first Tour de France in 1969, almost by 18 minutes over Roger Pigeon.
All right. Notice this one's got some Drillim on it.
Yeah. This was the bike. Another thing about this bike, this is the first frames that he started actually having his name on. Frames.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. And then you'll start seeing the first modified componentry with drilled holes here and there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know that was a trend for a while.
Yeah, this was in the early stages. I mean,
and what year is this again?
This one was 1970.
1970.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And then there's some pictures there of him on the actual bike.
All right, what do we have next?
Okay, so after the Fama years, then in 1971 through 73, he was on the Molteni team of Italy. And this is an actual 1972 Colnago Super.
Okay, so you didn't build this one.
Repainted it.
You repainted it. And
it's based off of this picture right here that Eddy signed for me years ago at one of the Interbike shows.
Oh, that's impressive.
So it's pretty neat, But this is when the Drillium was really at its height. Everything was drilled.
Check that out.
Yeah.
And you had a guy do that, or you?
No, I did it all.
You did it
on my milling machine. Yep.
Skills.
I mean, brake levers.
Gosh, I admire that. It's just wonderful.
Yep. Stem. Putting flutes on the double bolt record seat post.
Gosh, it's gorgeous. Just everything's perfect on this bike. Everything's perfect spec.
Yeah.
Oh, check out these rims. You got some Mavic.
Yeah, the Mavic gold. Yeah, record hour ones.
Wow.
And then pictures of Eddy working on the exact style in his shop in his basement.
Was he a mechanic?
Well, he knew how to do his own stuff pretty much. That was what's really unique about him. He loved the bikes.
You're right, absolutely.
Yep.
That is so nice. Well, I'm impressed. This is just a lot of fun.
And this is a shop banner that they put out years ago for dealers. So I thought that's a neat thing to have in the collection.
Yeah, you think?
Yep. And then this is one of the Molteni jerseys and you can see it in the picture there, when he had one of his world titles. He raced in that.
Okay. This thing's nuts. This is like, to me, creme de la creme.
Yeah.
Tell me about what we got here.
Well, what this is my reproduction of Eddy's Hour bike from 1972 in Mexico City. Ernesto was the builder, and here's a picture of him.
Wow. Historic, beautiful, 72.
Yeah, it was in 72, set the world record on it. So he built it with special Columbus tubing, very thin walled, some of it was straight gauge. And the normal lugs, took the fork crown and heavily filed it down to reduce as much weight as he could. Has these drilled out points in the back here just to reduce weight. A flat brake bridge and chainstay bridge.
Oh, wait a minute. I just noticed this.
Yeah, scalloped.
There's no...
yeah, the dust caps.
No dust caps.
In this era, they didn't think much about aerodynamics, that it was strictly weight. So this bike, Eddy's actual bike, was just a little over 12 pounds.
Whoa.
My goal, I made this again my size so I can ride on it.
Right.
And my goal is to try to match his weight. And I I got it down to about 12 and a quarter pounds. And where they got me is the tires. They had special Clement tires that were 80 to 90 grams a piece.
Oh my.
And these are new old stock vintage Clement Trax silk tubulars.
Right.
But they're from 1975, and they weigh, instead of 80 or 90 grams, they're about 140. So right there's where they got me on the weight.
I can't get over how meticulous you were on this. Just tell me about the cranks. These are unique as well. These are can't be cranks, but modified?
Yeah, they modified the track crank with the 144 bolt circle. And they're heavily milled. The groove was opened up, and then it has the groove milled out on both arms on both sides.
Okay, makes sense.
Then they milled out the center of the spiders to get rid of weight, and then it's all polished.
That's cool.
They removed the the little brace in between the chain rings there, and then milled that out to get rid of weight, and then engraved Eddy on there with 5 diamonds with the world colors. Then they took the Regina chain and drilled each link out on that. And then to further reduce weight, it's titanium spindles on the pedals, even punched little holes in the beamed its toe straps. But if you notice, they took the dust caps off, like on the pedals and on the hubs.
That's fascinating. I just love the detail, the fact that you went that far, and you say the only faux pas on this is the tires, because the other ones just don't exist.
Yeah.
What's the stem on this thing?
Well, this is one of the world's first titanium stems. And it's from Pino Moroni and Cecil Behringer. They're the ones that fabricated it. Another detail is it had the typical Colnago.
I see. Clover.
Clovers, cut out on the bottom bracket with the 4 holes. The other thing is, what happened is when they were there in Mexico City, at the last minute, Windsor was a manufacturer in Mexico, had him they offered him a lot of money if he'd put the Windsor decals on. So on the actual bike, and if you see these pictures here, especially right there, you can see this one's in the on the front, and there's the big one in the back, and it goes like that.
And did I hear that right? I think I heard it from Seth, that's, or actually from Jeffrey Bach.
It caused friction between it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say much.
Okay.
But I don't like putting these on. Distracts from the beauty of it.
Right.
But when I go to the big shows, I will stick those on there because that's the way it was actually ridden.
Right.
Just to show all the extents that they went to get rid of weight. You can't see below the seat post, but this is all drilled out underneath here in the seat post. It's titanium.
All right.
Special Campy headset. And then drilled, the handlebars are drilled, you can kind of see them underneath.
Oh, yeah, I see the dimples there.
Yeah. Very flexible.
Well, they didn't mess around.
No. So a lot of times you'll see these other pictures before the actual ride, and it's got a normal Cinelli stem on there because they only wanted to save this for the actual event.
Gotcha.
Another thing they did was to drill it on the gluing surface of the rim to reduce weight.
Sure, that took off some...
yeah.
Ounce here, an ounce there.
Yeah.
What's that in the background there?
Well, years ago at Interbike, every time I'd go there, I'd see both of them at their booths, and it took me a couple years to get them both to sign it at different times, but I finally got it.
That's valuable.
Yeah.
That's sharp.
And then it did pretty well at the Auburn show in 2022.
Oh, sure.
So, then after the hour record and everything, pretty much Ernesto and Eddy parted ways, but it was still during the Molteni sponsorship. So then Eddy went to Ugo de Rosa, and de Rosa pretty much made all the bikes from this point on all the way through his career.
Oh, okay.
To the end of his career.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So this is the Molteni team bike, but it's made by Ugo de Rosa.
So what happened to the Drill'em?
Well, it started to disappear. Of course, we saw Eddy was doing all the drilling, so we copied it too.
Right.
And in my case, I had experience. We had the holes drilled here, and in a race, it snapped off.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like in our mountains here in Colorado during the race. I was stuck in like my 13, because there wasn't enough leverage to shift, during the race. So I got, it's not worth it.
Yeah, that worth it.
I don't know. Maybe he was thinking, I'm sure he broke some stuff too.
Sure.
So pretty much the Super record came out, like that's first
Right,
generation
first gen.
Super acre.
Guys, you can tell it's first generation just in the black.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's any changes other than just anodizing on the Super record?
Now, like from the Nouveau record, I have both.
Mm-hmm.
It pretty much was the same thing, except it said Super record here, and it had the black anodizing here.
Okay.
And 2 titanium bolts.
The bolts are titanium.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so there's the mechanical difference there.
So this is a typical, DeRosa. It's got the famous flat fork crown, the lugs that he liked to use.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's heart cutouts on the bottom, and there are variations. There's many different variations, but some had the ovals and the heart, which this does.
Oh, look at that.
Okay. And the other thing is the diamond-shaped chain stays.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Yep, they're diamond-shaped.
That's beautiful.
And he had the flat caps with the point on it. So there's pictures of Eddy on that type of bike. Some variants had full chromed forks.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
And this was a nice thing that he put out years ago. And it has, he won Milan San Remo in 1976 on this style bike, and that's the actual bike. It's in one of Eddy's collections. He won Milan San Remo 7 times, and in 1976, it was on this type of bike here.
All right.
Okay.
That's cool.
And this is a real one.
That's a real one.
Yeah, I didn't accept my size again.
Right.
Okay, then after the Molteni years, he got the Fiat as the sponsor, and he brought a lot of his teammates with him. Patrick Surcouf was in there, again, his lifelong racing friend. And these are the team colors. It was the silver with the blue panel and the yellow Eddy Merckx. Again, typical DeRosa. The seat stays pointed, capped. It's got the diamond chain stays.
That's gorgeous.
Flat fork crown, and there were variants. Some of them had the heart engraved on there, and like on the orange one, it doesn't have that, but this one does.
Are all these parts new old stock?
Yeah, yep. I try to do new old stock. Yeah.
Oh.
And again, throughout the rest of his career, it was that first generation Super.
I've been trying to get my hands on one of those, and the problem with that is, for me anyway, is the expense. They're not cheap anymore.
Yep.
Cool.
And then people don't realize it, but Eddy, along with Patrick Surcouf most of the time, loved racing in the winter on the track. And this is an example of the DeRosa Fiat team track bike. The other thing I should mention, almost all the DeRosas that he rode from this point on were made out of Reynolds 531, not Columbus.
Oh, interesting. That was his preference?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see and you can look in the pictures, and you'll see the classic 531 on fork blades and on the seat tubes.
Sure. Interesting.
This one I had to make from scratch.
That is beautiful. Just gorgeous.
Yeah. And then there's pictures of Eddy and Patrick Surcouf in action during exchanges on the track.
Well, to me, that's really impressive. Like, it started here.
Yep.
Worked its way around. Comes out of the paint booth after decaling, and this is what you get. That's just nuts.
Yeah.
They got a 1R stem.
Yeah, and he fluted it, and he, because of Road Rider, he used road stems and road bars. It wasn't the tracks.
Oh, you know what? It's funny I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little ignorant. I never rode track, but
yeah.
All right. Oh, and you got the 2-bolt Super record. It looks like. Yep. Cool. And then
after so he was on the team for a couple of years on the Fiat squad. Then when that ended, a company C&A picked him up. It's a clothing distributor in Europe. And this was his last year, and he only raced half the beginning of the season on this team. So these are very rare jerseys to find. Like this is a more modern day one with a half zip. Still trying to find a wool one. And that was him in his last race in the spring of '78. So again, these were pretty much, the same as the Fiats, but the way you can tell them apart, instead of the blue background with the yellow Eddy Merckx, the CNAs had the yellow band with the black Eddy Merckx.
Right, right.
And that's how I tell them apart. So anyway, this was his last team on there, and this one has the heart on there. There were variants for time trials that were made out of Reynolds 753.
Right. Boy, that's beautiful.
Okay, then when I got back from the Auburn show this past spring, a couple weeks later, I'm on the internet and I'm looking through more Eddy Merckx post pictures and things, and then I came upon this picture right here. And it's in 1968. Eddie's on an asphalt track on a FEMA team track bike.
Huh.
And I go, it's a beautiful bike. And, it looks just like these right here.
Right, right.
And I go, well, I have to have that one too. So I started doing the research. And through my research, I found that, it's a Mozzie special.
Right.
It has the George Fisher Sandcast bottom bracket and fork crown, the Mozzie lugs.
And that's what you're building over here.
So yeah, in all this time, I finally have been able to procure all the parts. One of the hardest parts was the Fisher Sandcast fork crown. And I finally found this from a good friend of mine, Mark Noblette, another builder that's here in town.
Right, I met him in Auburn.
Yep.
Great guy.
And then the Sandcast crown, I just got that from Seth Wollins.
And what's the tubing set here?
This will be a Reynolds 531. I'll make it exact, and I'll make it my size again.
Sure.
And then that'll probably be it. The tribute collection will be a total of 11 bikes.
Now, you have a bunch of bikes all over the shop. I don't want to take too much more of your time.
Yeah.
Can you point out 3 or 4 that really stick out?
Okay, well, this one right here. This bike here is a Reynolds 753 road bike. I made it in 1986. Back in 1986, we hosted down in Colorado Springs both the World Road and Track Championships.
Right.
So I went ahead and made this bike. It weighs 16.25 pounds.
That's nuts for that year.
Yeah. And it had Super Record. This is the newer version, Super Record.
Sure.
The Super Record all alloy freewheel.
Right, right.
It had the Cobalto brakes that were put in there in between 2 different versions of the Delta brake.
Right, right.
And I liked it. It's like a Sapphire. That's my best stone.
Neat. I got a set of those. I just think they're fun.
Yeah. And what's kind of neat about this bike is, I had years later a customer come to visit me, and he had just gotten back from a bike riding trip in France.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in a local book store there, and he saw this book on there, and they used this bike as the cover on it. So I thought it was pretty cool, and it has a neat little story inside.
In French?
In French. So I always liked this bike. I raced it quite a bit. And it's a really nice, sweet feeling bike.
And not to mention, it's just stupid gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's been in a number of magazines and things. It's won a lot of awards at the various shows.
Well, that is definitely cool. Yep. What else you got?
Well, the other one that's pretty special to me, getting back to the hour record, Eddie set the hour in 72 on that style of bike.
Right.
But then years later, Francesco Mosier at the same track in Mexico City did it, and that's a picture of him on the wall there. First time using the disc wheels, the bullhorn bars. It was before we had the aero attachments on it.
Right.
And the frame had all these strange curved tubes to it.
Sure.
So when I saw that, I kind of fell in love with it, so I decided to make one for myself.
Okay, so this one up here?
Yeah, this one here. So I saw that bike that Francesco Mosier used to set the hour record, and since I was racing on the track, I thought, well, I'm going to make one for myself.
When in doubt, just build one for yourself.
Yeah, so what's unusual about that one, of course, is the curved tubing, but especially the top tube. That was made out of 4130 butted straight gauge chromoly tubing, and I had to bend it, curve it, because it goes from the head tube all the way up to the bottom of the seat post.
Right.
That was pretty tough on there.
And you raced that?
Yeah, I raced it in a number of our state championships, won the state titles on the Pursuit. But then in 1989, I beat the national record on that bike in the 3,000 meter Pursuit.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
And then later on of that year, just a friend of mine, we scheduled some track time, and I just wanted to see what I could do the hour in. And I ended up on that bike with the double discs. I did it in like 46 minutes, a little less than more.
Insane.
Than that.
That's just impressive.
Well, the first bike I ever built, Gangl #1, I call it, 1979, is that blue one right there. It was
back there? Okay.
Columbus SL with the SP chainstays. First generation Campy Super Record rear derailleur.
Right. Well, that's cool. That's history right there, #1.
Yeah, I won probably around 38 races on that bike.
Well, incredible stuff, guys. I don't know.
Yeah. And then here's one.
Oh, he's got more.
Yeah, this Mozzie. I've always loved Mozzies. So I was able to get my hands on this one. I just recently refinished it. It had some damage. But this is an original Mozzie, California, number 236, made in 1974. Follow me back here.
Oh, be careful here. Oh, I like those wheels.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, these are the wheels I'm building up for that blue Mozzie Grand Criterium. These rims we used to race on these in the 70s. They're my favorite, but you can't find them anymore.
I can imagine.
So what this is my granite alignment table. Yeah, so what you do, see how it activates. It's a pneumatic cylinder, slide that on there. And then
So that kind of establishes ground zero, if you will.
Yeah, pretty much ground zero. And then I designed and made these features that hold the frame. And typically, you'll check with the surface gauges that run out there, and you bring it down and make sure that point like this has to be aligned. You can see it's out about 3 millimeters. And what you would do is just cold set.
Oh boy.
Put the bar in there. And, you just feel for it.
Wow. Okay.
I would always reset my bottom bracket so it has a true zero, and then I'll double check my progress. And you can see I've almost eliminated it. So it's not too hard.
Just like that. Okay.
Yeah. And then I'll secure the seat tube here with this fixture that I made. Get that in there so it keeps the zero that I put on when I did the surface gauge there and there. Yeah. That's the beauty of steel. The beauty of steel lug bikes, fully repairable.
Is there any risk of hurting the brazing ever?
Well, my shop policy, if the frame came in after a crash or something and it was more than 1/4 inch, I usually would not try to set it.
Okay, so that was your...
Put these two pieces in and locked it down, and then put the jack stand to keep, because this adds weight and that would make this sag.
Sure, that makes sense.
And you'd get an erroneous reading.
Right.
So then you'd come in here, and that's 1/8 an inch, and check in here, and you can see where it's off about 3 millimeters.
Wow.
So what has to be done is I have to cold set it. So you grab on here for leverage, and you'll tweak that. And I go a little at a time, and then I check.
Sure.
Until I get it.
But that difference is accentuated because it's so far away.
Yeah, that's why it's way out there. Plus, it's got length on it for leverage, so I can straighten it.
Now, what's tolerable?
Well, for me, there were times in the past I had digital dial indicators.
Oh, okay.
And, I'd go overboard, but you don't need to. This is classic.
Oh, yeah. This is awesome. This is obviously a very flat piece of granite.
Yeah.
Well, that's an art, I tell you what.
Yeah, it's a flat, a couple thousandths of an inch.
That's cool. Well, thanks for showing me that.
Yeah.
That's really sharp. Well, that's awesome. Hey, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah. It's an education. I learn a lot always. And the artwork's amazing. Your career is amazing.
Just
you have a lot of street cred. You're racing. You won many races, and you build the bikes. And you race the bikes that you build, which is impressive. So thanks so much for spending the time.
Okay, anytime.
Excellent. Well, Well, you guys would have to agree, Rich is one gracious guy. He spent a couple hours with me, and wow, what an education that was. And what a beautiful lineup of bicycles. He's a real artist. Now, coming up, probably in January, you'll see the next step of this trip. I actually go to, where did I go? I went to Boulder, Colorado, and spent a couple days with Mike Cohn going over his collection, and he educates us on a bunch of stuff. Next time, our next video is going to be, yes, the overhaul of the Schwinn Volare, and as I do that, I'll be telling you the story of the Japanese Schwinns, why they exist, and things like that. So, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It's a long one this time, and if you stuck it out to the end, you get a gold star. Just give me a message in the comments section, and I will send that gold star to you. Hey, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments, like and subscribe to this video. And guys, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet. It'll really warm my heart. So, hey, thanks so much for watching. Catch you next video.